So for you then and your organisation, how important is this programme? How will it actually work in practice? And do you firmly believe that school is the right setting for such a programme?
We think this is really important. It's been developed by the Stephen Hawking Foundation, by Stephen's daughter leading the foundation, and it's a set of free critical thinking learning tools. And we think teachers will engage with these, science teachers in secondary schools, but teachers in year 6 in primary schools, we think they will use this PowerPoint, 46 slides on a PowerPoint, addressing the question, are vaccines safe, and allowing children to ask questions that are bubbling around, but sometimes you feel like you can't ask them, you don't get a decent answer to them. There are decent answers to all those questions in these PowerPoints. We think this is an important tool. Some of the children will be hearing about hesitancy amongst their parents. Some of them will have picked up the idea of hesitancy themselves. And we know it's an issue. Vaccine take-up is high, and it's getting higher, and it's getting higher amongst all ethnic groups, all segments of the population. But we see that men are not having the vaccine quite as much as women in the 50s, in the over 50s group. We see that with deprivation, the higher the deprivation, the slightly lower the vaccine take-up. So it's really important to address the concerns, let people ask their questions and give them, discuss proper answers with them.
And yet I have to ask you, are you surprised that vaccine hesitancy has ended up being needed to be talked about in lessons in our schools?
Well, no, I'm not enormously surprised by it. There has always been some degree of vaccine hesitancy. After that scare about the MMR and the alleged link that had with autism, a substantial segment of vaccine hesitancy developed over that. So it's not surprising that there are questions that people ask. It's important they're allowed to ask them, and that the best quality answers are given and discussed with people. So I think it's not surprising. It does seem that in our country, vaccine hesitancy is lower than in some of the other European countries. That's something to be prized. And I think teachers working on this can ensure that vaccine hesitancy is even lower. I mean, there are fair questions to ask. Have all ethnic groups properly been evaluated in the vaccine trials? Have we thought about pregnant women in the vaccine trials? All those questions. There are real questions to ask, and there are good answers that scientists have, that we have in this PowerPoint presentation and the associated resource materials that go with them.
How's the initial programme then? Just finally, let me ask you, Kevin, and indeed the feedback of it being received. Tell us more about the organisations involved in it all.
Well, it's been developed by the Stephen Hawking Foundation and by Queen Mary University. It's been developed, one of the lead workers on it, a science teacher, a member of the National Education Union in a school in Tower Hamlets. So we're all really pleased to be working together on producing these materials. And then, the role of the NEU is advertising them to all of our members, but we're doing it with the IF, the Ideas Foundation, the Vaccine Confidence the Vaccine Confidence Project, really reputable organisations, and with Ed Stubbs, shout out to Ed Stubbs, science teacher at Morpeth School in Tower Hamlets, who's worked on this with Dr. Emily Grossman. And so the Queen Mary University, very reputable materials that have been produced and will really help, be a real support to teachers dealing with these questions.
Good stuff. Kevin, thanks for taking us through the details. We wish you and your colleagues all the very best of luck with that programme. Of course, the NEU's Joint General Secretary there, Kevin Courtney.